Good evening, fans, and welcome to another episode. Somehow we made it to the third episode since this show is terrible and the first two episodes were garbage of Shootin the Shit here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. Just a disclaimer before we get started, there are other great shows on this network, so give them a listen, including a show that I tape on Monday nights. I believe it goes out on Tuesdays called, I can't think of the name of the show right now. That's how bad I am at it. Last One Standing. Sorry, I got it. Keith Schillen's going to kick my ass if I keep forgetting the name of the show. So check those out. Those are interesting shows. There's shows every day on the network, and check those out. Same format as Shootin the Shit. We have a pro fighter talking with us about random stuff, and then we'll talk about the UFC. I believe it's all on ESPN now this Saturday in Jacksonville. That is headlined by Alistair Overeem and Walt Harris. But first, let me introduce our guest. He is a lightweight top prospect, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a smoker, a blower of smoke up the ass. I usually say what I feel, but I think this guy that we're talking to tonight, Max Rohskopf, is one of the best, not just lightweight prospects in the world, but overall prospects in the world. And he has such a short record, just a 5-0, if I'm not mistaken, pro record. This is a guy you're going to see in the UFC pretty quickly if this whole COVID thing gets cleared up. I think there's kind of a log jam right now. But Max, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Hey, is that whole putting yourself down and forgetting stuff on purpose? Like, that's your thing, ain't it?
You think it's my
gimmick? You forgot that on purpose to make money.
If you like, yeah. I like to stay modest, I guess. But no, I rightfully take last place. That show I was talking about, One Standing, is kind of like Around the Horn on ESPN, and I always gladfully take last place. I will take a dive in the last round and take last place. So you may have caught me on that one, Max. So just to start off, Max, obviously you have an extensive background in wrestling. You were a collegiate wrestler, I believe, at NC State, the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were very successful there. It's a big part of how you fight. You know, one of the things I noticed on your Twitter you talk about a lot is weight cutting. So what are your thoughts on weight cutting? There's, obviously controversies with certain guys. Just last weekend, UFC 249, Jeremy Stevens missed by almost 5 pounds. So kind of just give us your philosophy on weight cut and what your feelings are when it comes to weight cutting in mixed martial arts.
So cause I saw Jeremy miss weight, and I'm like, how tall is he? Like, he's short.
5'8", 5'9".
Yeah. I have a teammate that makes 145 easily. He's like 6'1". He's a lot bit like I also don't want to like bash anyone because I don't know their specific situation. But I think if you say you're going to make the weight, you got to make the weight, you got to be a professional about it. Now there are extenuating circumstances. Maybe you got like a 4 or 5 day notice, but that's not really happening in the UFC a whole lot. Like, if you say you're going to make the weight, make the weight. Don't disrespect your opponent by missing by like 5 pounds. Like, I think Calvin mentioned that. He's like, man, that was just like straight disrespectful.
Yeah.
Stuff. And then I've had one opponent miss weight by like 3 pounds, and I was just like, I didn't really care, but I'm just like, dude, like,
right.
I've only missed weight one time. It's because I had it when I was like 16 years old. Like, that's the only time, and I'll never miss weight again. And I've had some pretty rough cuts, so like, I know. It's a mental thing, man.
The thing I got here, is there any forgiveness given the circumstances right now? Because some of these guys made weight cuts, then they had their whole cards canceled because of the current situation, and then they got rebooked pretty quickly. So there's a chance that they were cutting, and then they stopped cutting, obviously, and then they got rebooked so quickly that maybe it kind of threw off their diet. Now, obviously, everyone but Stevens made the weight. Is there any allowance there of being understanding?
Honestly, I don't really, as long as it doesn't involve me, I don't really care, but I don't think like, if you want to do a catch weight, just say you want to do a catch weight, don't say you're going to make the weight and then have the other guy make weight and then you don't.
Right. So, and obviously you're more accustomed to it than guys who come into this maybe say from a boxing background or a kickboxing background, or even to an extended jiu-jitsu background. Jiu-jitsu guys definitely cut weight, but not nearly as hardcore as I would say American wrestlers do. Obviously it's a big advantage to you. Could you kind of just talk about the process of maybe getting used to that, being that you've been a wrestler for so long?
Yeah, so when I first started wrestling, right, I was the first wrestler in my family wrestling, especially in Ohio. It's like a family sport. Like, your dad does it, your uncles do it, everyone does it. I was the first one. I sucked at every other sport I ever played, at least when I was little. Wasn't an naturally athletic kid. So when I started wrestling, I had really no one to like really teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I started to get a little bit better, I had coaches, but to my own detriment, I didn't really listen to what anyone was saying. So like I was thinking about it because I was planning on talking about a little bit of weight cutting, right? And I was thinking about it. I was like, no one really told me how to cut weight. But then when I looked back and I thought about it, people were telling me, but I was so stubborn I didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I figured it out the hard way, but I think that's like my biggest strength, my biggest weakness. Because if I listened to everyone I was growing up, I would be like a woman beater and an alcoholic if I listened to the people who I was supposed to be listening to.
So you're confirming right now that you're not an alcoholic woman beater. That's a big take on this show.
Well, that's what, yeah, but like that's what if I were listening to the people who were around me growing up, that's what I would be, right?
Sure.
So I think that I've always been like stubborn and like I haven't listened well in the past, and so I've learned it the hard way. And so like when I was cutting weight in high school, I think the worst weight cut was all year was from like 155 to 130.
Ooh, oh, that's not that bad. I went to high school. Well, I'm not going to say it's that bad, but I had a guy that cut 60 pounds and had to maintain that being that 60 pounds the entire season. The dude was eating a saltine cracker a day. It was horrible.
Well, what was his body fat percentage though?
Oh,
when he started, there's a difference. So there's a difference between cutting weight and losing weight.
Yep.
There's a big difference. I was lean at 155.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because he had a little bit of a pot belly, but I mean, still 60 pounds. That's a lot of weight.
No, it's still not. It takes your body a long time to adjust, even after you've lost all that weight.
Yeah.
So that is hard, but I was making 130 from 155 every single week.
Right, and there ain't a lot to lose there.
And I had no idea what I was doing. And so like, this is literally like, this is going to sound made up, but I was doing this shit, bro. So like, you know how like when you weigh in, so like when you get down the weight, let's say after practice, I was like 138.
Yeah.
I was always like, oh, well now I can eat, but now I can have like, I can only be 140. I would eat a whole box of cereal and be like, oh, that's less than a pound. I was so stupid, bro.
Not realizing how it metabolizes.
Yeah. I'm like 14, 15 years old, and I'm just like, that's the shit I was doing, and then not drinking any water, and then just showing up to practice the next day.
To be fair, though, a guy your age probably wouldn't realize that, though. You're not knowing what you know. You're just cognitively saying, oh, if I put 1 pound of things in my body, it's going to just add 1 pound. I mean, I understand the mindset. Obviously, I know it's wrong.
That's what I was doing for at least a couple years, and then I was actually, I think halfway through my sophomore year, the year I was making 130, I like tried to quit. I didn't want to cut weight anymore. I like tried to quit, and then the old wrestling coach from like 40 years ago was in the room, and he like talked me out of like not quitting pretty much, and I'm like crying. And then we're at the state tournament. I weigh in, I think it was 133 because you get 2 pounds allowance.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was 132, and then you get a 1 pound allowance for the next weigh-in.
Right.
I weighed in at 132. I think I lost in the second round, and then I won my match the place. And so then I had to make weight again.
Ooh.
Jumped on the scale. I had to make weight in like 6 hours. I was 152.
Oh my God.
And I was like,
put it back on too, yeah.
Yeah, I put it back. I put it on like almost immediately because it's all water.
Yeah.
And then, so I start cutting to make the weight again, because if I didn't make weight, I didn't place at state, and I couldn't compete again the next day. I'm like getting closer and closer and closer after just jogging for like 4 hours, and I'm like crying. I'm like begging the coaches to let me quit. I'm like bawling my eyes out while I'm jogging. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then ended up missing. I couldn't make the weight that night, but they let you come in the next morning and make weight. So I had to cut weight all night, come in, make weight the next morning. And then it was fucking weird. I wrestled one more match, my placement match, and I destroyed the kid.
Oh, wow, really?
Like, I have no idea. Like, I was just like, all right, well, I had my ice cream and water, now I'm ready to go. Like,
and I bet you didn't sleep a wink that night, because when you're dehydrated, sleeping is almost impossible. I mean, just when I get a fucking hangover, sleeping the next day after trying to rehydrate is just the shits. So now just imagine you're a wrestler who's been competing and you're tired, but you don't have any water in your body. I can imagine that is just the goddamn Hershey shits.
I've had a lot of nights like that.
I don't doubt that, and that's why I'm really happy I was never a wrestler. I worked out with the wrestling team once. I was a basketball player, and we had practice. We usually had practice in the afternoons early on, but one day we did it in the morning for some reason. It might have been because we had finals or something. I don't remember what it was, but we had practice in the morning that day. And then after school, I was like, well, shit, I don't want to go home. I'd rather just either shoot around or. So my friend on the wrestling team goes, hey, you want to work out with us? I worked out with him for 20 minutes, and I was like, fuck this, and went home. I was just like, there's no way. I was in good shape, too. I was in basketball shape. But, yeah, that wasn't happening. So kind of going from weight cutting to weight stacking, I had seen on your Twitter you retweeted about this McDonald's 90-minute feast challenge. Now, I'd seen in one of your retweets, you said you could do it. But then somebody else had said, do you think anybody could do it? I did see that before that post. Matt Stoney did it in about 15 minutes. Now, you said you could do it in 90 minutes. Do you think are you talking shit or is that legit?
I can do it in, the hard part for me would be the soda.
Yeah.
I can do it in 30 minutes.
You think you can do it in 30 minutes?
I can do it in 30 minutes.
All right. Well, I'm challenging you. We'll do a live stream one night. And we'll both do it. I'm a pretty good eater myself. I think my record was 75 wings in. It was under 10. It was under 15 minutes, I think, or 10 minutes. That was interesting, and my certain parts of me were very hot the next morning. But yeah, so I think the challenge was, I think it was 4. What was it? 4 double quarter pounders, right?
Yeah.
40 nuggets.
Nuggets. A few large fries,
yep.
And 4 sodas.
And 4 sodas. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do the sodas. I'd have to sub in Hawaiian Punch or something. I don't drink soda anymore. So I think we should.
I'm down with that if we can do punch, bro. I fucking hate soda.
They have Hawaiian Punch in Illinois McDonald's. I don't know if they have them everywhere, but I know they should. So you could do that, and that would work. So I'm declaring that now. We'll have to do a run back one of these weeks and do a live stream, and we'll try and do that. It says 90 minutes. I say 60 minutes. I say we try to do it under that. I think 90 minutes is kind of long because you can take breaks and stuff. So but it's a good amount of food. So speaking of, so you went to college, and then of course you said you've had a lot of interesting jobs throughout your career. I know you mentioned you were a bouncer, which I was a bouncer actually, on and off. Still do it once in a while when I need some extra cash. You said you were a bricklayer, etc. So why don't you just kind of explain? Well, first part will be explain some of the cool jobs you've had, and maybe if you have any funny stories about them. We always like those kind of things. And then I guess we'll get into, having a job as a secondary job as being a fighter. So first off, what are some of the jobs you've had, and what are some good stuff you can tell us about those?
Yeah, so the first job I ever had was pretty much, it was unpaid, but I got paid every once in a while. It was the laying. I laid field stone for my dad growing up. So it's like off the top of my head, I want to say it's like $60 to $80 an hour work.
Yeah.
And I was doing that shit for free. We would go out to a field, go grab stone, cut it ourselves, and then put it on houses. It looks really, really nice.
There you go.
And I'm doing that at like 11 years old. Fucking hated that shit. That's part of the reason I wanted to start wrestling. I was like, I'm never working like this again.
Yeah, but you were probably pretty strong from doing that, even as a 12-year-old. So
yeah, and then didn't work. And then once I was 15, I needed gas money to go to wrestling practice and shit during the summer. So I started lifeguarding, and I'm like 125-pound, 15-year-old kid lifeguarding at it was like a camper resort in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And so we're getting like a bunch of like big drunk dudes that are probably in their 40s, and like they're fucking around at the pool. And I'm always like the 15-year-old kid telling these like 40-year-old men, like, hey, knock it off, quit acting like a kid, or like telling them what to do. And they're like, you're 15 or whatever. Like, yeah, well, I'm the boss here right now. So
yeah,
how about you get in your chair, put your beer down, and get out of the pool?
They never also realize that even though you're 15, you can still call the police. Like that's not even a thought that crossed their mind,
Yeah. And then like college, I wanted to start bouncing when I was in college because I had nothing. Like I was a guy who was going out and partying and doing all that sorts of stuff. But I was bored on the weekends, and I wanted to start bouncing, but our coaches wouldn't let me. They wouldn't really let anyone on the team because they didn't want us around like that atmosphere. Right. But it kind of like it was the same reason like why, because they always tested us for marijuana and street drugs too. And it was like almost disrespectful to me that they were testing us or they wouldn't let me go bounce or whatever. Cause I'm like, you guys know I ain't doing any of that shit, bro. Like I don't even like it.
Right.
So like, why?
I think the rule is it's not just a single rule for one person. It's a universal rule for everybody. So it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. But so I tried being a bouncer, wasn't allowed, and then worked a little bit for Oak Grove Technologies. We did like field work at a military training facility. I basically just did like cut the grass,
gotcha,
move shit around, stuff like that. That was like an hour drive in the summers while we were training for wrestling. No real good crazy stories. And then started bouncing when I was in North Carolina. When I moved to Wilmington to train, because I dropped out of college, and then I went to Wilmington because I found a gym that I was comfortable training at for a little while. And I started bouncing, and I don't really have any cool stories. And then the one I can recall, I don't remember all the details, but the human resources person, I can't remember his name, but I know his face. One of the human HR people at NC State in the athletic department showed up.
Oh God!
At the bar, and he's like talking to someone, and he has his girl with him or some girl with him, and he starts getting in like a fight with this huge dude.
Oh God!
And he's from the HR department who was always there at NC State telling us not to do stupid shit.
Right.
And now he's at some bar in Wilmington, 4 hours away from Raleigh. And I talked to him when he got there. Like he knew me and everything. I knew him and stuff. And then basically I had to just tell him to leave because I was like, dude, you can't be in here doing stupid shit and then just continuing to talk. Luckily I never had to physically throw anyone out or anything like that. I would not be good at that.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple times. I've bounced maybe a dozen, maybe 2 dozen times total. Like I said, in the recent times, I did it as recently as a couple months ago. I just do it like when my friend's a bar owner, he'll just be like, hey, I'll pay. Hopefully the guest isn't listening. He'll be like, I'll just pay you cash and then just come for like 7 or 8 hours or whatever it is. And I'm like, cool. So I had some company had rented out the whole bar for like a holiday party. And I don't know who goes to a company holiday party and gets like 100% shit-faced and then is starting shit with people, including one of the bosses.
Yeah.
Right. So I walked this guy out, and then he came back and he started threatening the boss, and I was just kind of standing in between him. And then finally, he was so drunk, like I swear to God, if I would have sneezed on him, he would have fell over. I put my hand on him because we're waiting for the cops, and he just fell backwards. And I was just like, I didn't even push him, you know. So, and he ended up getting arrested. They were talking to him for 30 minutes. They were just trying not to. They didn't want to write the paperwork. They just wanted him to go the fuck home, you know? And eventually they're just like, all right, that's fucking enough. And they threw him in the cop car. And he's like, he said you hit him. I said, okay, there's about 50 people here who will tell you I didn't. I touched him, but I went like this and he fell backwards, you know? And another one where, and in college, I used to do it for free drinks. So if somebody, you know, called out, if somebody called out, he'd be like, hey, can you come for like 3 or 4 hours and just check IDs and stuff? I'm like, yeah. So I would do that once in a while. And one of the other bouncers was the middle linebacker of the football team, and some guy swung a bottle at his head and just missed. And then I went to go pop him, and this kid was a middle linebacker, just quickly just picks him up, slams him on the ground like like a half a suplex, and just starts pounding him. And I was like, oh shit! So I'm pulling him off because I was like, you never see a bouncer pull another bouncer off. I'm like, you're gonna fucking kill him, dude! Stop. So, man, I guess I had a crazier slight bouncer career than you did, which is a little interesting, but you probably had more discipline because you're a wrestler, and I'm just a fucking fool. So,
well, I was training the fight already, and I was doing jiu-jitsu three times a day, pretty much. So I was getting all that out. I didn't have any more of that shit.
The reason I think I got repeat calls to do the thing is because I am pretty level-headed and I can talk to people. But again, a couple times I didn't really even have to do it. So my stories aren't great either. But you know, there's a couple. There's always a bunch of idiots. So that's the problem. You have to have a cool head. That's why they call the head bouncer the cooler for a reason. So, so moving past your careers, you've had some interesting jobs. Obviously, I still think putting this cutting stone at 12 is pretty intense. Let's move more towards kind of our current day here. You're an established mixed martial arts fighter. You know, obviously part of being a fighter is selling yourself, being out there, being vocal. You know, getting some attention. I mean, it's a sport of draw. We all know that. Twitter. I've noticed you're pretty good at pissing people off on Twitter. Some would call trolling. Obviously, is this something you do on purpose? Like, what's the point of you doing that?
Yeah, no, I don't really do it on purpose. With that being said, though, I think like at least the one thing I don't like about wrestling and wrestlers is like every time they're put into like a public spotlight or they have a platform, they're not themselves. They act fake as fuck.
They go the pro wrestler route.
No. They go like the opposite, where it's like you've interviewed a wrestler, bro. In the locker room, he's talking shit. In practice, he's talking shit. He's getting in fights. He's doing all this. He's going out partying, doing coke and all this other stupid shit. And then as soon as you put him on a mic in front of Flow Wrestling, they're like, yeah, I work hard, I train hard, and everything's attributed to hard work and dedication. It's like, shut the fuck up, bro. Like, that's just like, yeah, like, shut up. Like, everyone works hard. Everyone works hard. I don't want to hear it. And then they're like, or those people who are like that, who do everything right and do all the right things, and they train super hard, they're like, think they deserve the win. They think because they do everything right, they deserve the win. That also doesn't mean you deserve the win. The person who deserves the win is the one who goes out and does it. So just like shut up about the hard work. Everyone works hard, bro.
I can see that totally. I think the biggest example of that, and it's my favorite, and is John Jones. Before he had his skirt pulled up, he was two different characters. He was the respectful, has Philippians, the Bible thing on his thing, and then all of a sudden, my favorite was on the ESPN interview when they got caught on the hot mic, him and Cormier. And he was calling him a pussy, and he was going to kill him. I think that was the time he got his skirt pulled up. But he was doing exactly what you were just saying. And he's obviously got a pretty decorated wrestling career himself. And
a lot of wrestlers are like that. And then so how that pertains to me is like when I'm on Twitter or doing interviews or talking or hanging out with people, I'm exactly who I am to my friends in the locker room. I don't try to be. And if everyone else did that, they would piss a lot of people off too. The difference between me and them is I really don't give a fuck.
Sure, and it's kind of
living my life.
It's kind of like a bro frat mentality with a lot of the guys. Would you agree?
Yeah.
I can see that because a lot of the guys in high school were definitely like that as well. Now, again, specifically on Twitter with trolling, will you troll upcoming opponents, just to kind of get into their skin or anything like that, or is it just random wankers on Twitter that are just annoying?
Yeah, it's just random people. At some point down the line, like if I have an opponent that like I didn't like for whatever reason, and maybe if they started something, but I'm not going to go out of my way looking for trouble. Really, like there's no really any point in that. I'll finish it, but I won't really start it.
Sure. I've mastered the art of trolling on Twitter and Facebook myself. So, and again, if you listen, this is mostly to the fans out here. If they are listening. They probably are not. But if you want to hear some masterful trolling or some obvious sarcasm that some people take seriously, again, watch the show I mentioned earlier that I can't remember the name of, which we'll be taping. We're taping this in advance. Obviously, this isn't but we taped that show in advance. We're taping it tonight. You'll hear it there. So, anyways. Before we get to the UFC fights, though, I do want to ask you one question. I hate talking about it. I say it every episode. I hate talking about it because it's all you hear about. But COVID-19, it has changed the way we kind of live life, unfortunately. If it were up to me, I think people who want to go out or want to stay home and not be in contact with people, stay the fuck home. And I'll live my life the way I want to live my life. That's just me. But obviously our routines have changed. I saw on Twitter today there was a protest in some state about reopening gyms, and they were protesting outside the Capitol building. They were all doing jumping jacks and push-ups. Ridiculous, but hilarious. So how has your lifestyle changed as a result of COVID-19? How has it changed up your routine?
Same amount of training, more Madden. That's it.
So more video games, same amount of training. Is there anything you're doing less?
I mean, training a little bit less, like on the days where I would normally do like 3 days, because I'm not doing those anymore. But it's pretty much twice a day, and then but normally a normal week about two. I try not to do more than 3 days a week. I'll do 3. But yeah, I've just pretty much cut that out. There for the first couple of weeks, it was just once because I wasn't exactly sure about how contagious or how everything was. So I was only doing once just because I wanted to make sure my immune system was strong. Because the way I train, like my immune system goes down. Like I can feel it because
Well,
I'm not
a
very
lot of that
smart
has to
about it.
probably do with the weight cut, though, right?
No, if I could be out of camp.
Okay.
Like I love training, and I push myself.
And you'd have to assume
And
MMA gyms are pretty big germ factories too, so
yeah.
that makes
But
sense.
yeah, it didn't change it all that much. Miss the kids, doing more privates and stuff like that. But it's weird, man, because like I don't even know, and like with me saying this too, like I don't even know anything about this shit. Yeah. I think if someone comes out and they say they know the exact solution and that they know everything about it, they're an idiot.
Right.
Because you're only gathering information from what other people are telling you. Those other, like from the media or whatever, and they're biased, and you don't know, like you don't even know where they're getting their information from.
Right.
No one really knows exactly what's going on right now.
Well, and the thing too is that everyone who's an expert, well, meteorologists are experts too. How often do they fucking get the weather right, you know? So these people are just the best educated guessers, you know? So yeah. I totally agree with that.
Well, and then there's like the hospitals, like I've seen that like they're counting like pneumonia deaths as COVID, and like they didn't even have COVID.
Right.
And so like when little shit like that comes out, I'm just like, all right, my brain turns off, and I'm like, okay, bullshit. Like, yeah, I can't even wrap my head around it.
When they're doing like autopsies, there were actual coroners who were doing autopsies on bodies, and they were like, why was this a COVID death? This person had a heart attack. They just tested positive afterwards, you know, and that's again why I think, and I don't want to downplay things. I do and I don't, but I just think like, if we covered the flu, and I don't want to use the flu because everyone uses it, but if we covered the flu deaths every year the same way we covered COVID, would we shut down society every time? I think take the proper precautions. And again, people who are susceptible or don't want to be in contact with other people, there's an easy solution to that. If I open up a bar, you don't have to go to it. In the same way, if I open up a gym, you don't have to go to it either. But you also don't have to hang out with me if you don't want to. So that's just kind of my take on it. Now, one more thing I actually had written down, I forgot. Now, you're obviously a professional mixed martial artist. Do you have a second job that you work?
I teach kids.
So you teach at the gym?
Yep.
Okay. And obviously you haven't been able to do that. So has that been lost income?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been lost income.
How is that? How is everything holding up with that? Are you doing okay, or?
Yeah, I'm in a good living situation, and I'm good.
That's good. I have a lot of friends.
Nothing I can't. I'm really lucky. If I wasn't in the situation that I'm in now, I probably would have had to move back to Ohio for a little bit, and probably stay with my mom and my brother. So
gotcha. Yeah, that would suck. And I have a lot of friends in the restaurant and bar industry, and they're hurting right now. So I feel terrible for them. But I'm glad to see that you're able to stay on your 2 feet for now. Hopefully, it opens up soon enough that you can get back to doing that. Okay, we will swing to the upcoming Saturday UFC event. I believe it is technically a UFC on ESPN now. I think they moved all the ESPN Plus cards to ESPN because what the fuck else is on TV right now? So we'll just talk about the main card. We got 5 fights. We said we're headlined by Overeem Harris, but we'll start at the bottom of the card first. The opening bout is a featherweight bout. It's between Yadong Song of China and Marlon Vera, who has been pretty hot as of late. I'm going to pull up his record while we're talking here. But Vera is one of those guys who's really, really upped his career since moving to the United States, has really improved his skills. But Yadong Song is a guy that, I didn't really put a lot of my eggs in the Chinese MMA basket. I just thought they were too new. I think he's kind of outdone expectations. So what is your thoughts on this fight?
I would have to see, because I haven't seen I haven't seen Vera fight in a long time. Just for whatever reason, I haven't watched him. But I think I'm gonna take Yadong Song in that one.
You gonna take Song?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Song.
So Vera's on a 5-fight winning streak right now. I'm just taking a look at his record. He won 3 times in 2019: a knockout of Frankie Saenz, a rear naked choke submission of Nolan Hernandez, and a knockout by elbows and punches over Andre Ewell. Like I said, once he moved to America, he was tough to begin with. I think he's really refined his skills since coming here. I'm going to take Vera in this one, and he was actually training, I believe, for like Eddie Wineland before this fight, and obviously all these things fell through.
Where's he training at?
I think he's with Timo Yama right now. I know he was, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, he was originally with Winklejohn and Jackson, but I could be wrong on that. But
That's in California, right?
Oyama, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So but it'll be a good fight. It's a good way to open the main card. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Moving on to the middleweight division, we have Krzysztof Jotko of Poland, who has had some big wins and he's had some big losses, but definitely a guy who's deserved of being in the top 25 UFC middleweight division, taking on former collegiate football player Eric Anders, who is another guy who's likely a top 25er. Give me your take on this one.
I'm gonna take Anders because I just think, like you mentioned, Jotko kind of has like up and down results. I think Anders is a little bit more consistent, so I would take Anders.
Yeah,
just because I think he's a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, that Anders is definitely a natural athlete, and to quickly kind of establish yourself in the UFC, especially I think his debut was in I guess his debut was 2010, but oh no, that's Jotko. I'm looking at the wrong thing here, but Anders is explosive, very good striker, tough, very tough guy. I forgot who it was beating the goddamn tar out of him, and he never went down. It might have been Khalil Roundtree or something like that. But I'm going to take Jotko, so we're going to be splitting the hairs here again. I like Jotko. I think his grappling and his wrestling is going to be good enough. Anders is like I said, he's quick and he's athletic, but I do think that Jotko, when he gets a hold of him and when he does, he'll have to close the distance and take some shots. But when he does do that, I think he's going to get him to the ground, and I think he's going to grind on him for a little bit. So it might not be the most exciting fight, but I think Jotko walks away the winner on that one. Moving to the featherweight division, the third of five, a guy that you said you have trained with, Dan Ige, who has really, really boosted his stock in the last few fights, gets a big-time fight in Edson Barboza, who is moving down from lightweight. So I guess before I ask for your prediction, Barboza was not a small lightweight, but now he's cutting to featherweight, and he's doing it in, like we said with Jeremy Stephens, in a circumstance where he had been cutting and then he had to quit. And now he's recutting to make that featherweight. Do you think he makes weight?
No, I don't think he makes weight. If he does, he's not going to look very good on the scale.
Yeah, what I was thinking of is Kevin Lee when he was against was it Tony Ferguson, just looked so emaciated. That's what I think Edson Barboza is going to look like in this one at the weigh-ins.
He's probably honestly going to look like man, he's not going to look good, man.
Stick man with a head.
Yeah.
So you obviously Ige Barboza. What do you think this fight goes like?
I think Barboza has the advantage early, and then but then it's hard because Dan even says it Dan doesn't have good second rounds. He has good third rounds, but he does not have good second rounds. So because normally he's a fast starter.
Yeah.
And I think you got to be a fast starter against Barboza. Especially now that he's cutting that more weight, you gotta try to make him a little faster than he wants to be. But I think if Dan can get him to the ground, that he'll control it and probably win a decision. Yeah,
absolutely. And the big problem that Dan's gonna have to get through is those leg kicks, because a couple of those Barboza leg kicks, shooting's not going to be very easy. That dude kicks ridiculously hard. This one is a toss-up fight for me. I think Ige has the advantage that the longer this fight goes, the better he has a chance because of that massive weight cut by Barboza. But Barboza's stopping power is just so ridiculous. His punches are powerful. His kicks are ridiculously hard.
He could not have that power though.
That's true.
The same way at 45. I think the reach advantage and the speed advantage at the beginning will be heavy. Mm-hmm. Because of that, but he might not have as much power at the lower weight. We'll see.
That's a good point. I'm going to take Barboza in a toss-up, but I can see Ige winning, but I can see Barboza winning. I'll go with what I know rather than what maybe.
Yep.
So going to the co-main event, we got a women's fight. Basically, the women's Donald Cerrone, Angela Hill, who's fighting 6 times a year now. She takes every late notice opportunity. When good for her, she's getting paid. Taking on Claudia Gadelha, former title challenger, obviously probably one of the most physically strong women's strawweights in the world. I mean, she is cut. I don't even know how she makes weight half the time. What are your thoughts on this one? You got a grappler versus striker matchup.
I think Claudia doesn't cut much weight at all, actually, which is weird because she she looks huge.
Right.
Well, she's really short, but
That's true.
I think Claudia's probably gonna take her down, and that's gonna be the fight. I don't see either one of them in that fight having the power to put each other out, and then I think it's gonna come down to positional. And I haven't seen enough of Hill.
Definitely a good Muay Thai striker. Definitely that's her background. Good kicks. She's quick, a good athlete. But I'm with you. This will be the first fight we have an outright agree on. I think Gedalia wins. I think she is aggressive enough that she pushes her against the cage. And again, kind of like what we said earlier, once she gets a hold of her, I don't think Hill's getting up because Claudia is heavy on top and she's very technical on top as well. I believe she's a black belt. I think she was with Nova União or still is with because she trains with Ortega now, so she's actually in the United States, but she used to be with Nova União, if I'm not mistaken. Those guys are all...
She trains kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I think she does look for a camp in New York.
Okay. Well then, you know better than I do, but I think her home base was originally Nova União, and those people are just renowned grapplers. So we agree on that one. Gedalia will take the victory. All right, main event time, and then we'll get you out of here so you can go train in an undisclosed location. We have Alistair Overeem, the former Strikeforce champion, longtime MMA fighter, taking on Walt Harris. So before we make our fight predictions, as obviously, and this is, I'll be serious at this time. I'm not serious very often. We all know what happened with Walt Harris' stepdaughter. A terrible story. Is this too soon for him to come back? Do you think that is in the back of his mind that affects him coming into this?
I think with something like that, as long as it's not like crippling depression or anxiety about it, which I could see possibly. I think if he can control that, I think it's good for him to come back early. Gives him something to work towards, and keep his mind off of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll hear people say work is the best distraction. So maybe that is the case. But basically, what you see here is you're going to see two heavy hitters. Does this fight leave the first round?
It doesn't leave the first round, and I'm not going to lie on this one. I just want Walt Harris to win, and I'm not a big fan of Overeem. So,
old horse meat?
Technically, I'm not going to – I don't really care about Overeem, so I think give me Walt. I want Walt to win.
So you're taking Walt Harris in the Cinderella story, the end of the – hopefully turning around to make it the feel good. I like Walt Harris. He was a guy that was in the UFC and got cut his first time around because he wasn't getting wins. And he's come back and he's gotten some good wins. I believe he beat Alexei Olenek, who just beat Verdum over the weekend. Yeah. But Overeem is a more technical striker. Overeem is most likely a more powerful striker. It depends how much horse meat, aka HGH, he's taken that week.
Well, everything he's taken his whole life stays with him.
Right, exactly. No meal has ever been shed from him.
That strength doesn't completely leave you.
True. And that's 100% true, especially if you have a good base and then you're adding onto it with substances that I would not say are legal. I want Walt Harris to win too. I agree with you. I want him to win, but wanting and picking are two different things. I'm going to take Overeem in a first round knockout. Kind of a bad position for him because it's like, you just knocked out the guy whose stepdaughter just passed.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a no-win situation for him, but it's a job that Walt Harris signed the dotted line, so he knows what he's getting himself into. So I would love to see an upset, though. I think that'd be great. But all right, Max, where can everybody find you? You can plug yourself right now.
Max XXX Ing out 155, and I think it's just 2 X's on Instagram. You just search my name. I'm the only person with my name in the whole world. So Max Rohskopf. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Perfect. And again, I'm going to close saying this, and I'm not, like I said, I don't blow smoke up people's ass. If I have a fighter on here who I don't respect or don't think they have a bright future, I will tell them I don't give a shit. What's he going to do? Punch me through the webcam? One of the good things about me is honesty. Max, I truly believe that you are going to be doing big things. I do see you in the UFC as soon as they have roster space open. Actually, one of my highest read scouting reports was actually on you. So there's obviously a little bit of interest in your name, so that's a good thing. So we expect to see you there. Obviously, no fight scheduled yet.
Nope.
Okay, because
I'm ready. I'm ready tomorrow.
Right, and then Titan FC had a card they just announced, and I was like, "Where the hell is Max Rohskopf?" You know, so
yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Yeah, they had my manager up, Brian Butler, about that.
Brian Butler, yeah, he represented some people in my neck of the woods as well. So, all right, Max, I will let you go. Again, this has been Shootin the Shit here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. Tune in every week. We have fighters, we have fun stories, we have fight predictions, we have it all. We have gross language, and I usually drink, and that's why it usually devolves into nonsense. So for Max Rohskopf, I'm Riley Kontek signing out here. Have a great night and go fuck yourselves.